Hello everybody and welcome back to a new episode of Prehistoric Kingdom. My name is Oak. Today we're going to be creating an enclosure for our woolly mammoths, together with a kind of like museum slash observation area, which I really enjoyed making, so please enjoy the video. So for this enclosure I wanted to have a few options for the visitors to look at the animals, one from down below and one from more higher up. And rather than doing the placing rocks in with a fence behind that trick, I wanted to create a separate, section with a custom-made fence. So that's what you see me making right here. And I actually kind of liked doing this way, and I'm definitely going to do this more often. Creating custom fences just gives it a bit more life to the park, because I made them that high because the woolly mammoths are pretty big, but later on I realized the people that were standing behind these fences would be standing kind of high as well, so you don't really need protection from these woolly mammoths. So that's why I decided to lower it later on. So after I lowered the fences, I had to copy it all the way, and this was kind of more work than I thought, funnily enough, but it worked out in the end, and I think the end result speaks for itself, and I think it really brings forward the it makes it more realistic for some reason, and it gives a bit more, we're in a zoo vibe instead of, this is a beast or animal in his own habitat, which is fun to make, of course, and I'm definitely going to continue doing that. But I think there's a nice mix here, which I really like, and is also, again, kind of realistic, which is pretty cool. So for this enclosure, I wanted to make kind of a little museum type deal, which also functioned as a observation platform for the visitors. So that's why I created this little house which was raised, which is actually the entrance, the main entrance for this enclosure. So I kind of went with this almost dome shape where you could also look into the air. I don't know why you would want it with animals that are down from you, but it works. It gives a really like light feel to it, and really like natural light and stuff. I don't know, I'm not a house maker, but I like the idea, and I went with it, so that's pretty cool, I guess. So later on I will make everything wood, which you see right now is just mainly white, but this is just more like indication of where I want the pieces to go. Later on I'm going to make it more wood like, because I think that matches the most with the woolly mammoth, it being like rustic and kind of prehistoric, because as we all know, or probably don't know, but it is a thing, is the dinosaurs of course died much earlier than the woolly mammoth, but the woolly mammoth actually was around when humans were around, so that's pretty cool, I guess. So you can kind of imagine that these type of buildings, minus the glass maybe, were around in smaller sizes, of course. So that's something I really like. And just adding in some little details there, just to not make it look like a box, which I think it worked with just a small like border there, or like a strip. You really come a long way. So I waited to put on the roof until I was ready with the whole like setup of the house itself, because otherwise it would be hard for me to kind of like know where the things are. So here I'm making kind of like a separate room where I wanted a little skeleton to be, or a little skeleton, the skull of a mammoth, with some pictures on the wall, which in the end turned out pretty well, if I do say so myself. And I really enjoy that kind of like addition that we have there. So here I'm making the plateau for the skull. It was way too big, and I kind of struggled with how I wanted to scale this, but in the end it worked out, so that's fine. Just using the glass textures to kind of make a border there, and I think that really worked out. It's kind of like the same tactic we use with the I believe it's called the Dilophosaurus, the guys from Jurassic Park that extend their fangs. If you want to see that video, you can click the card in the top right. But it really works because you kind of don't see the glass itself, so it kind of looks like a little how do you call it, little rope that is surrounded with a do not touch sign maybe. So I was, I imagined this little like art piece on the walls, kind of like resembling like cave paintings, but of course we don't really have that in the game, so it's kind of like an homage to it, but not really cave paintings. And you know, I think they ended up looking pretty cool. I did 2 walls, and they're both kind of different, but with the same assets, of course. And you see here a big mammoth with a smaller one, so I imagine that is a child and a mother or father or something. Probably mother, because mammoths, the men were, you know, nomads, which you can also see later on when I place in all the mammoths itself. So finishing up the little museum part, you know, with some statues, because why not? You know, really brings it together, and I think that's pretty cool. Because we copied all those little sections of the wall here, you had these little like inseams, and I was kind of struggling how to fill them up, but eventually I just placed a like quarter circle there, which you know, gave a kind of smooth transition between the little plates. You can still kind of see it, but it's fine enough for me. So because the elephants kind of need a high security fence and also a kind of tall fence, it was really hard for me to find like suitable, like good looking fences. So I went for a kind of like moat system, where I placed a moat with some rocks, and behind it I could place a more aesthetically pleasing wall, so I didn't have to have like a prison type enclosure, which I just don't like to make. So for the backstage area, I just went with a prefab version that the game already has, which I thought would be good enough for this enclosure. And in the end, you don't really see it from the visitor side, because there's just a lot of foliage in front of it, and I placed these rocks here, as you can see, which kind of like draw your attention to those things. So here you can see me building the moat I was talking about earlier. And I am, as you can see, placing rocks inside of there to not make it look like a hole in the ground, basically. Well, it's still a hole in the ground, of course, but it gives it a bit more texture and a bit more interesting, you know, feel to it. So I was kind of inspired of what I wanted to do inside of this enclosure, and then I just googled boreal, kind of like what type of environments you have, mainly in the north of the world, like Siberia, Canada, like the Scandinavian countries. And I saw this picture of a river in like a how do you call it, pebble like beach type thing, which really go like zigzagging the river, zigzagging in the landscape, and then ending up in a big pine wood forest. And I really liked that look, so I went for that one. I first wanted to create like a whole like gray area, but then I realized it kind of looked ugly, so I ended up not doing that. But yeah, I wanted to create this mix of like a really rocky, like desolate place, and then create this like more lush and kind of still like desolate, but more like with more trees and a bit more plants. And in the end, I think it really looked quite good. And I never really made like an enclosure like this. I always do a lot of like foliage, a lot of forests, a lot of water. But I liked this kind of like barren feel, and I'm definitely going to experiment with it more later in the later episodes, of course, depending on the animal that I'm using, of course. But when I was making this, I realized I needed some, you know, snow and stuff, but I thought the snow textures had too much snow on it. So I ended up just placing these rocks which had snow on them, and kind of like morphing them into the already existing rocks, kind of like showing little patches of snow. And I personally really think that turned out pretty well. Kind of like we just had the winter and it's kind of like melting already, but it's still kind of there. Kind of like the transition from Ice Age to not Ice Age, basically. And I think that turned out pretty well, and it really gives a, you know, pretty unique vibe, especially to this park, which again is kind of lush and kind of like green. So I personally really like that. And again, to create that like kind of like melting effect, I just really lightly just added some patches of snow there. And I kind of like saw a pattern in like the texture, so I personally don't really like that, and I try to, you know, make sure you don't really see that, but in the end you kind of still see it. But it is what it is, I guess. So like I said, I wanted to create this effect that the river is kind of like flowing into like a more foresty place. So what I did is I placed 2 rows of trees, one lower and one higher, so you kind of get this feeling you're working up to a mountain. In my challenge video, the latest one I uploaded, please watch that one, I thought it was pretty fun. I created this mountain, and I wanted to create, I was thinking about creating that in this episode, but I thought, nah, I can do better than that, I think. Maybe not for this one. So I did not do it. It was an option though, but I ended up not doing it because I didn't like the feel of it and I thought there was too much going on. So I just ended up with like 2 rows of trees, which kind of give you this parallax effect when you walk by it, and I will show you guys when we do the tour. So here I am creating the roof. I was kind of struggling of how I wanted to make this roof. I had an idea in my head, but it turned out to be pretty shitty. So I just ended up just doing it like this, as you can see. Nothing too fancy, but I think it complements the glass panes well enough. So after putting in the mammoths and some other like little attributes that the park needs, I finished the enclosure, and I can't wait to show you guys because I think it's pretty good and I really enjoyed making it, and it's again something different than I normally do. So let me show you guys. Alright, so after leaving the Nasuceratops enclosure, you enter the mammoths. There they are. Look at them. Majestic. They're beautiful in this game. I can imagine they also were in real life. So you enter here. To that side there's nothing really interesting going on. It's just the backstage area with the entrance for the keepers that is running right now. With also the entrance here. But I'll show you guys in a sec. So first of all, you can go and get something to eat here, which I just added for the park's sake. I don't think this is really beautiful, but let's just ignore that for now. So you enter via here, you go up the stairs right here, and you can also kind of see the animals right there, but you of course can see them better from here. As you can see, they're kind of morphing into each other, but that's fine. And they're pretty cool. So like I said, there's always one like nomad in this in the Mammoth Kingdom, and I don't really see which one that is. I think it's that one, but I'm not sure. Or it's that one. Yeah, it's that one. So yeah, look at them. Happy peppy. So you enter the little museum thing via here, and then you have the little museum thing here with some information of the animal, maybe about the skeleton itself, and again some little statues of the animals itself, because of course you cannot really go anywhere near them, but you can right here, and of course in the petting zoo we made. So yeah, that is kind of fun. I also placed some benches here so people can sit down, because of course people need to... Sir, I kindly would like to ask you to leave this place. Ma'am, I don't know what you were doing there, but yeah, that is not really what we want, is it? Can I just place a thing there? Of course this happens when I want to show the world what I've made. It always goes south. There you go. It should be fixed. Even this whole patch here is kind of ugly. Guys, I am really careful. I promise you, I really care about what I make. I promise you that. I don't I don't really know how to fix this. That's fine. Anyway, sorry for that little interruption there. And people are... So did something I've seen earlier, where they're kind of like walking in place. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I don't know. Anyway, I placed in some benches right here, so people can sit down. I placed in some vending machines so people can get something to drink or to eat, and of course binoculars here to look at the beautiful animals that are over there and the beautiful keepers. Of course, we like to see it. So that's pretty nice. And they're not walking in place anymore. That's nice. So if you continue through here, I just placed some benches and again some binoculars with some donation boxes and of course information screens where you can again look at the animals. Like, or the back of the person. This tour is completely out of order already. But I'm not going to start again. We're just gonna leave it in. So if you continue through here, you eventually get to the Tyrannosaurus or T-Rex enclosure, and guys, I swear to God, this wasn't there when I got here. Or this was here when I got... Or this wasn't... I didn't do this. I'm not gonna fix that now. So, anyway. Now the enclosure itself. So if you come in here, via this entrance, you have this little bridge with a, horn sticking out. With, the beetle thingies. And, oh, the frames are dropping. What's going on here? So everyone seems to get stuck in this enclosure. Because why not? Let me just help you there. I don't know, guys, I'm sorry. So you have the little backstage area here, just a few sleeping places with some watering place. And then you have the little, you call it forest area, where they can get their fruit, or their vegetables. I also placed in these rocks, because I like rocks. And the little moat over here, of course you enter over the moat. Kind of a security thing there. And then you get the more like field type thing, and that eventually just slowly turns into this like barren wasteland, basically. With the snow, and I also put in a little ice thing for fruit, because they also eat fruit, and I believe the fruit feeding place is somewhere along here as well, but I'm not exactly sure why I put that anymore. But it's fine. And why did I put in the meat thing? Why did I do that? They don't eat that guy. This is the most chaotic tour ever. So, you have the river right here, which I really like the shape. It's really a natural shape, which I really enjoy. And I put in some old trees, kind of like this was a nice lush forest maybe, and then the how do you call it, the Ice Age came or something, and these are still standing here or something along those lines. And then you have some more rocks over here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, I really enjoyed this little enclosure. I think it's pretty cool. Again, with the barren wastelands over here and then the mammoths over there, I think it's just really amazing. And of course, before I forget to show you guys the effect the the forest has with the parallax thing. I think that's really cool. You really get the idea there's a big forest over there. So I think that is pretty cool. So if you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. Help me grow the channel, grow the people that are watching it. Thank you very much for the people that are already watching it, and that are watching every time. I do see you guys watching it, so I really appreciate it. And I also really appreciate the comments. You know who you are. I try to react to everyone. I think I managed until now. So again, thank you very much, and I really like reading your comments, so just so you guys know that. But for now, I will leave you guys, and I will see you guys later. Bye bye.